All right, everybody, hello and welcome back to another video here with Wholeo Awakening and Thunder Dragon Neigong. Today we're going to be continuing in our series on the 7 Hermetic Principles and their applications to internal martial arts and cultivation practices. As always, before we begin, go ahead and like, subscribe, follow whatever is applicable wherever you're watching this so you can be notified of all the other educational material that we provide. And be sure and check out our websites where we have classes, courses, consultations, and all of that good stuff available as well. Today, we're going to be looking at the principle of rhythm, learning to flow with the pulse of the Tao. In this 6th article of our series on the 7 Hermetic Principles and their relationship to the alchemical path and the internal martial arts, we now turn to the 5th principle, which is the principle of rhythm. If the principle of polarity teaches us that all reality is expressed through complementary opposites, then the principle of rhythm explains how those opposites move. Polarity is structure, rhythm is motion. Polarity is the 2 poles of the pendulum, rhythm is the pendulum's swing. So just as we discussed in the principle of polarity, how it is embodied in the yin-yang symbol, the taiji, where we have yang constantly flowing into yin, yin constantly flowing into yang, the 2 opposites, which are actually 2 halves of one whole. Rhythm comes into play when we look at actually how they move and how they flow one into the other. The Hermetic teachings describe this law simply. Everything rises and falls. Everything flows in cycles. All things move in tides. Nothing remains fixed. This is a very important concept for our practice. This goes beyond philosophy. This is the observable behavior of nature itself. We see it in everything around us. Rhythm as the signature of creation. Rhythm is everywhere. We hear it in music. We see it in waves, wind, heartbeat, breath, the turning of the heavens. We experience it in waking and sleeping, hunger and satiety, activity and rest, joy and grief. The ocean tides rise and fall. The moon waxes and wanes. The sun climbs and sets. The seasons shift from growth to decay and back again. Civilizations rise and fall. Even thoughts and emotions come in waves. From the Hermetic and Taoist view alike, rhythm is not random fluctuation. It is a fundamental organizing principle of reality. Creation unfolds in pulses. The Tao is not a static thing. It is a living process constantly in motion. Taoist cosmology and living in accord with natural cycles. Taoist tradition places tremendous emphasis on living in harmony with natural rhythms. To live against the cycles of heaven and earth is to create friction. To live with them is to cultivate health, clarity, and longevity. This is why traditional Chinese medicine and Taoist cultivation emphasize aligning your daily life with the rhythm of day and night, the seasonal cycles, the energetic shifts of climate, the waxing and waning of activity and rest. Modern science now describes this in terms of circadian biology. Our hormones, our digestion, our sleep cycles, our immune function, our mood are all regulated by internal clocks, synchronized with light, temperature, and routine. When these rhythms are stable, the body thrives. When those rhythms are disrupted through irregular sleep, through artificial stimulation, through excessive stress, poor diet, or constant overwork, the body enters disharmony. The result is often anxiety, fatigue, inflammation, and chronic illness. The Taoist view is simple. Illness is frequently the result of living out of rhythm. And this, of course, we understand is one of the major issues with the majority of the prevailing health problems that people experience today is they're living their life poorly. We live our lives increasingly out of sync with nature, out of touch with ourselves. We're oblivious to our own bodies, constantly hyperstimulated, swirling in our thoughts, swirling in the information that's all around us, and we are completely disrupted and cut off from the natural way of being, from the natural flow of life, from the Tao. And this dysregulation creates and gives rise to all of the common ailments that we face today. The inner rhythm, breath, heart, and nervous system. Rhythm is not only external, it is deeply internal. Breathing is rhythm. The heartbeat is rhythm. Brain waves are rhythm. The nervous system operates through oscillations between activation and recovery. Even the ability to relax is rhythmic. Song is not a fixed state. We talk about song here, we're talking about the release of excess tension in the body that we practice in qigong and taijiquan. It is the rhythmic letting go of unnecessary tension, moment by moment. When internal rhythm is disturbed, we become scattered. When it is refined, we become coherent. This is why breath regulation is foundational across all internal arts. Breath is the bridge between unconscious rhythm and conscious rhythm. By refining breathing patterns, we refine the rhythms of the entire system. The breath is a control mechanism that allows us to set the tone, set the state of the rest of the body and the mind as well. In alchemical terms, breath is one of the primary instruments for tuning the body's or internal tides. So now, how does this specifically apply to taiji and the internal martial arts? Taiji is the rhythmic dance of yin and yang. We talked about in the beginning how yin and yang, the flowing of one into the other, is governed by rhythm. It is an expression of rhythm. In taijiquan, rhythm is not optional. It is the art itself. If there is no rhythm, there is no taiji. Taiji is the living expression of yin and yang in motion. Yin and yang do not simply exist as opposites, they transform into each other through rhythmic alternation. Every taiji movement is built upon paired cycles. There's opening and there's closing. There's rising and there's falling. Expanding and contracting. Advancing and retreating. There's fullness and there's emptiness. These waves of opposites flowing one into the other is the mechanism, the machine that moves and creates Tai Chi. A posture may appear still on the outside, even when we're standing still, yet inside it is pulsing with subtle rhythmic adjustments, micro expansions, releases, and rebalancing. The experienced practitioner moves like waves, continuous, unbroken, and alive. When rhythm is missing, Taiji becomes mechanical. Movements become stiff, disconnected, and lifeless. It's like when you look at a beginning practitioner and they're very robotic in their movements, very clunky and clumsy, stiff, uncoordinated. But as you practice, as you continue, you refine these techniques, you refine these movements until they become rhythmic, flowing, continuous, cycling from one to the other, from rising to falling, from opening and closing, expanding and contracting. And then the art becomes more powerful, more ingrained into the body, develops and cultivates the better quality and function of the body, its tissues, and its energy, its chi. When rhythm is missing, taiji becomes mechanical. The body becomes an instrument of the Tao when we gain rhythm into our practice. Qigong, cultivating rhythm as a healing force. In Qigong, rhythm becomes medicine. A simple exercise such as raising and lowering the arms can become profoundly transformative when practiced with rhythmic awareness. The movement regulates the breath. The breath regulates the nervous system. The nervous system regulates organ function. The organs regulate emotional stability. This is why Qigong is often described as simple but not easy. It looks very simple in many cases. Often we're just standing still. We're just making these slight movements, slight adjustments to posture. But what's happening on the inside is where the power comes from. The external movement is straightforward, but the internal refinement of rhythm is the real skill. And this is where the real benefits come from. We can just mindlessly move our hands around all we want, and we'll get a little relaxation from that, sure. We'll get a little relief of stress. But this is nothing, doesn't even scratch the surface of the actual benefits that we could grasp if we go inside and learn about these internal mechanics, how to establish these principles within our bodies. When practiced correctly, Qigong entrains the body into a smoother wave pattern, less chaotic, less reactive, more harmonious. In modern terms, it increases coherence. In Taoist terms, it smooths the flow of qi. The pendulum of life, riding the swings. The principle of rhythm also reveals why human beings suffer unnecessarily. We resist natural swings. Much of the suffering we experience in life is because of our stubborn resistance to natural order. We only want the up cycle of joy, energy, success, and youth, but we reject the down cycle, fatigue, loss, aging, and grief. Remember from the principle of polarity, opposites are not two separate things, they are one thing. You cannot have one without the other. It cannot exist without its opposite. But the Tao does not move in straight lines. It moves in spirals and waves, just like we teach in our taiji practice. Don't ever just move in a straight line like a robot, straight angular lines. We circle, we flow, we spiral. This is the way energy moves through nature. Growth is followed by rest. Expansion is followed by contraction. Activity is followed by stillness. To resist rhythm is to fight reality. And when we fight reality, we create internal friction, mental, emotional, and physical. Without going into all the examples, we all understand how we can see this in our modern society that has become increasingly hell-bent on fighting reality at every turn. And look at the nonsense that comes from it, the mental health disaster that the world is experiencing. Because we cannot accept reality and flow with nature. We have to fight against it, try to dominate it, overcome it, define ourselves outside of reality. The wise practitioner learns instead to ride the wave. When energy is high, we train. When energy is low, we nourish and recover. When life demands outward action, we act. When life calls for inward reflection, we return to stillness. Rhythm is the secret of martial skill. In martial training, rhythm is power. A skilled fighter does not merely use strength, he uses timing. Timing is rhythm. The ability to sense an opponent's rhythm, when they're full, when they're empty, when they inhale, when they tense, is the basis of true thing or listening. Tingjin is the ability to perceive into your opponent, which is why it's called listening. You're analyzing your opponent's quality, their quality of being, their quality of movement. In push hands, the practitioner learns to feel the opponent's internal wave. Once that rhythm is perceived, it can be disrupted or redirected effortlessly. A small change in timing can collapse a strong structure. A subtle shift can uproot someone without force. Thus, rhythm becomes a martial principle as much as a health principle. The opponent is not defeated through aggression, but through understanding the tides of motion. The alchemical path, refining the cycles within. Alchemy is not merely about achieving an elevated state. It is about transforming one's relationship with the natural cycles of existence. As we talk about endlessly, because it has to be understood. True cultivation is not just getting high and feeling good. This is where the people who get into psychedelics go wrong. The true practice is about cultivating and improving the self, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, strengthening and empowering the body, balancing, harmonizing the mind, the energy system, the nervous system. All of these components have to be worked together toward the end goal of improving our life in all areas. It's not about just playing around. It's not about just feeling good. It's not about reaching some altered state. These things are just surface level nonsense. The real power comes through the dedication of real training. The alchemist does not cling to highs or fear lows. Instead, he studies rhythm until he understands how to stabilize his center while the pendulum swings. This is a major spiritual maturity, the ability to remain inwardly balanced while life moves through its inevitable changes, to be able to become a pillar unto ourselves, unaffected by all of the swirling chaos around us. When rhythm is understood, we stop being victims of circumstance. We begin to anticipate cycles, prepare for them, and work with them rather than against them. In this way, rhythm becomes freedom, freedom from the slavery that we all experience, things around us, our circumstances, other people, situations that come in and push us around and disrupt our harmonies, and disrupt our thoughts, disrupt our well-being. All of this results from the inability to center and ground ourselves, to be able to sense the rhythm, sense the flow of life, and to be able to root ourselves in the best position possible. Attunement to the Tao. The ultimate teaching of the principle of rhythm is this: life is movement, and movement is patterned. The Tao expresses itself through cycles, and the wise practitioner becomes aligned with those cycles. To live well is not to dominate nature, as so many are trying to do today with the biohackers and the transhumanism and all this nonsense. To live well is to harmonize with nature. When we eat with the seasons, when we sleep with the sun, when we breathe with steadiness, when we move with the flow, we are not merely becoming healthier, we are becoming more integrated with the intelligence of creation itself. This is why taiji and qigong feel so timeless. They do not impose artificial systems on the body. They restore the body's original rhythm. They teach us to return to the pulse of heaven and earth. In the next article, we'll explore the principle of cause and effect, examining how rhythm produces predictable outcomes. Now, every internal state generates consequences. and how true cultivation is the art of becoming conscious of the causes we plant, so that the effects we reap align with our highest path. So with that said, we'll close here today. Everybody, again, make sure that if you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow, whatever is applicable wherever you're watching this, and check out our website where we have our classes, courses, consultations, and a wealth of other educational material. And with that, we'll go ahead and sign off for today. We'll see you next time.